It's time for Popok Live After Dark. And the After Dark edition, what else would we talk about this last week? Then the Matt Gaetz sex scandal ethics report issued by the House Ethics Committee. Last gasp effort came out on the last day. They'd hoped to bury it during the Christmas break, but we caught it. I broke it down. I talk about what they found substantial evidence for. Sex rape of underage women, statutory rape of a 17-year-old girl, multiple sex trysts with women that he paid for, drug use and the like, and things that, well, they investigated, but they couldn't find enough substantial evidence for, like sex trafficking. Does it really matter about Matt Gaetz' future as a politician? Is he going to get a pardon out of this from Donald Trump? I connect the dots as only I can on Popok Live. Take a listen. Now let's talk about Matt Gaetz. All right. Let me get the basics on the table so we all know what was decided and what was not decided by this long-awaited House Ethics Committee report. Now, how did that come about? I think it's the only bipartisan, truly bipartisan, split 5-5 Republican and Democrat, chaired by a Republican because they're in control of the House. But it's the only true bipartisan committee that there is. And I think at the very end, when they took so much grief about not releasing the report, I think they finally decided. And they got at least one Republican. I don't know who it is yet. One Republican had to come over to break the deadlock of 5-5. We know the chairperson, Matt Gaetz, from Mississippi, was against it. So some Republican, I'm sure he or she will be in the crosshairs of Donald Trump. He'll be calling for a primary challenge any moment now. But somebody moved the needle and opened it up. Now, I think they had to, because, can you imagine the precedent of they do a 20-month investigation of Matt Gaetz, whether he committed sex crimes, used illicit drugs, and bribery, and they decided not to release it because he dropped out. He only dropped out to avoid the release. And if they don't release it, what does it say about the committee and its bipartisanship and ethics? Isn't it unethical for the ethics committee not to release their report? I'm sure that was bouncing around in the transom of their mind, and the irony of it was not lost on anybody. So they got the job done. They got the practical effect. They effectively got Matt Gaetz to resign from running or be fired for the attorney general position, and they sort of forced him out by resignation. They flashed it around like, we've got a report. And, Matt Gaetz knows what's in a report because Matt Gaetz did the bad things. And I'm sure Michael Guest, the Republican chairperson, let Matt Gaetz know that report's terrible for you. And so they accomplished all that. Now, the last gasp, really the last day, when they were meeting before the holidays, they released the report. Here's what it found. At least 20 times Matt Gaetz used Venmo and PayPal to have sex, including with underage girls, including what would be referred to in Florida as statutory rape, since the girl was 17 while he was 35. That he used illicit drugs. That he used his power, his public power, improperly. In other words, it was an abuse of public trust, trying to use his power to benefit one of these girls, one of these women, in order to expedite her passport, apparently. Big tough guy, big guy with power, trying to get the passport expedited. I can do that for $50. He also obstructed the proceedings, the congressional investigation, obstruction of Congress, obstruction of justice, because he refused to cooperate with them. He said there was counter evidence that would prove his innocence, which he never provided, and delayed them on that. The only thing they didn't clear him of, the only thing they were able to sort of clear him on is they didn't find substantial evidence to prove that he trafficked girls across state lines or country lines for sex. In other words, sex trafficking. That's it. That's not covering himself in any glory. Off of that, there could still be, in a perfect world that we don't live in, there could still be a prosecution of Matt Gaetz for obstruction of justice, lying to Congress, and also statutory rape. But the statutory rape and those other things are generally state law violations. Guys from Florida, that's a Ron DeSantis MAGA land. That's not going to lead to a prosecution, I don't think. And then on the federal side, Pam Bondi's not going to do it. And Donald Trump's going to give the guy, especially after the release of the report, he's going to give him a pardon. So the federal stuff's dead, DOA. So there could be time. Now, some of it doesn't have a statute of limitations. So that really is the reason that Donald Trump has to give this guy a pardon. in Gaetz's mind, because there's no statute of limitations. So if Donald Trump if MAGA loses in the in the next election for the presidency, and a Democrat comes in, Matt Gaetz is exposed again. So look for a pardon based on the revelation of this report. Here's another reason Matt Gaetz shouldn't be the top lawyer in the land as the head of the Department of Justice, as Attorney General. He doesn't know how to prepare and file a lawsuit, because there was a lot of publicity that he filed a lawsuit to try to stop the publication of the report that I already have a copy of. It's 41 pages. But he didn't ask for an injunction. He didn't ask the judge to stop the release. And he filed it after the publication. I'm not quite sure where this was going, but there's a rumor that Matt Gaetz wants to run for the Senate seat in Florida, abdicated or abandoned by Marco Rubio. He could. Then if he tries to get back in, then the Senate would have to take up whether he's fit and whether he should be impeached and removed based on the findings of that report in the House. But then you got the House versus the Senate. The Senate will be controlled by the Republicans. They'll probably seat the guy. They'll probably seat him. We could sue over it, could try to challenge it. We'll continue to follow Matt Gaetz. It's important, though, that this report came out branding him for what he is: a statutory rapist, somebody who had sex with girls, somebody who paid to have sex with girls, who abused his position of power, used illicit drugs, and obstructed Congress. If I was running against Matt Gaetz, I might want to bring some of those things up to the people of the state of Florida. I think he was popular in his little corner that he lived in. I'm not sure he's popular for statewide office, but that's my own opinion, having lived down in Florida for a number of years. Welcome back. The disgusting plight of Matt Gaetz. I'm sure that this new report, having just been released, is only going to increase the pressure on Donald Trump to give this guy a pardon. But will it ultimately matter to the American people? I follow all of these types of issues here on Legal AF and on Popok Live, a new show on 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights on the Midas Touch Network, along with Legal AF, which I do Wednesdays and Saturdays as well. So if you like all things Popok and Legal AF, you've come to the right place. And thank you for being here. I'll see you on the next Popok Live. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.